Director Patel, thank you for being here today, and most importantly, thank you for restoring trust and faith in the FBI, which has been severely eroded under the Biden administration. Thank you for your service and your continued service in this capacity. On April 7th, 2025, Charlie posted on X, "Assassination culture is spreading from the left. 48% of liberals say it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk. 55% say the same about Donald Trump. In California, activists are naming ballot measures after Luigi Mangione. The left is being whipped into a violent frenzy and set back. Whether losing an election or losing a court case justifies a maximally violent response," end quote. And unfortunately for Charlie, that reaction also came when they couldn't win a debate on a college campus. You cannot be intellectually honest and say that this problem is on both sides. It's not just what happened to President Trump, it's also what just happened to Charlie. And we've gotten to a point in America where violence is encouraged. When you have a former president of the United States that opens up his campaign in 2019, that's Joe Biden, by saying that his opponent is a, quote, existential threat to this country, Houston, we have a problem. People that you disagree with are not existential threats. They are not Nazis. They are not fascist. They are not racist. They are not deplorable. They are not irredeemable. They are your fellow Americans who have a different perspective on how government should run and what government should look like. Whether or not we should have strong sovereign borders, whether or not we should have safe communities, whether or not we should have places to worship our God and not worry about being shot, whether or not we live in communities and cities that are not overwhelmed by drugs and crime, whether or not we have two genders, and whether or not we have common sense in our policies and our values. And people that believe these things are not existential threats. I happen to be one of these people that believes all of the above, and as someone that served this country in combat, I can assure you I am not an existential threat to this country because I swore to protect her. I also want to point out, how many cities have you seen burned to the ground since Charlie Kirk's death? 0. No summer of love, no riots, no nothing, no looting, no killing, none. We simply gathered and prayed for his soul, his family, and this country, because that's exactly what we represent. And while we might be angry, this righteous anger will carry on Charlie's message and legacy. I want everybody to know something very simple. Charlie is not dead because of what he said. He is dead because people listened. My time is limited, so I have a few questions for you, sir. And again, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate your time and your service. In your experience in the FBI, have you noticed a precipitous rise in political violence and other associated crimes that you have been investigating so far this year? And if so, is this trend in motive left-wing or right-wing violence?
I can always speak generally, sir. There is too much political violence, and it has been a precipitate rise on too many fronts.
How do we solve this?
We solve this by giving the FBI more authorities to go into and work with the private sector. There are too many online platforms. There are too many social media platforms. There are too many gaming platforms. There are too many places for people from America and around the world to get together without their parents knowing anything about it, without their school teachers knowing anything about it, and infesting the minds of our children and infecting them with radical ideology, and that is the root cause of these problems, and we must tackle it. It is not a 1950s America anymore. In 2025, the cyberspace needs to be tackled.
Thank you. Switching gears, when your predecessor sat right there in that seat a couple of years, last year in a committee hearing, I asked him a very detailed question about Matthew Thomas Crooks, the shooter responsible for the assassination attempt on President Trump's life. I did get an answer from Chris Wray that day, and I submitted written questions to the FBI and into the record of this committee, and I want to resubmit those questions today because I think we are still awaiting answers to those questions. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit some for the record, please. I'd like to ask you, sir, and the FBI, under your leadership, would you please respond to these questions, and can you commit to doing that?
As soon as the trial's over.
Thank you very much. I will end with this. Charlie Kirk is not dead because of what he said. Charlie Kirk is dead because people listened. He set up a tent that said, "Prove me wrong," and exercise his First Amendment right. That's all he did. And we will continue to do so in this country in order to preserve this constitutional republic. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman heard this congressional research report titled U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Operations and Issues for Congress, and it shows that out of 10 million forms processed by USCIS in 2023, only 1.6% were referred to the Office of Fraud Detection and National Security for any indications of fraud or national security threats.
Without objection. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the Biden administration, the United States was flooded with tens of millions of illegal immigrants that used dozens of visa programs to finesse their way into our great nation. In response to this invasion, President Trump signed an executive order simply returning immigration law back to the standards of July 19, 2021, which restores and enhances all screening of foreign nationals, especially those who are considered to be a high risk to this country. In order to secure the homeland, which was about 77 million Americans voted for, we must do more than just finish the wall, fund CBP, and support ICE's lawful deportation operations. We must also reform visa programs which have been used to usurp federal immigration law. We were told post 9/11 that we were going to fight in Afghanistan and that we had to fight in Iraq. And why? Because if we didn't fight the enemy there, then we're going to have to fight them here in our own country now. And now, because of the failures of the Democrat Party's policies, they are now in our homeland. And how do we know? Because 382 citizens who are matches on the terror watch list were encountered at the southern border, and 99 of those were released into the United States from 2001 through 2023. Unacceptable. The Democrat Party under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Alejandro Mayorkas, and numerous other dark money groups and NGOs made it their mission to flood this country with tens of millions of unvetted immigrants and people who wish to do us harm. Terrorists like Egyptian national Mohammed Sabri Solomon, who used a homemade flamethrower and Molotov cocktails in Boulder, Colorado, to attack pro-Israel demonstrators who were advocating for the release of hostages. This man, who was admitted into the U.S. in 2022 on a tourist visa and was then given work authorization in 2023 by, yes, you guessed it, the Biden administration, and had been posting pro-Muslim Brotherhood propaganda on his Facebook page for more than a decade. Disgusting. Ms. Vaughn, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your testimony. If you had a magic wand that could create any policy to prevent tragedies such like we saw in Boulder, Colorado a few weeks ago, what would it be, ma'am?
Well, unfortunately, there's no machine that can read people's minds to know what their intent is when they're coming here. But I think one of the most important improvements that we could make would be to require mandatory interviews for non-immigrant visa applicants and also people who are applying for green cards and immigrant visas.
Okay,
we should have eyes on and a personal contact with everyone who is.
Can you say that again, please? We should have personal contact with every single visa holder of every single individual that wants to enter this country. Am I right or wrong?
Right, at a minimum for their first application. Some renewals are not high risk once you can examine their travel history, but every new applicant, with very few exceptions, should have a personal interview.
What the American public needs to understand and what we know is that 77 million people voted for exactly what President Trump is executing right now. The faux outrage from the left continues to ignore the damage that has been done to our country and people that are literally maiming our fellow Americans while we have done nothing and we stood by idly. We are now acting and behaving in a way that enforces the law. This is not xenophobia. This is the way and the process that it takes to enter a sovereign nation, and we at the federal government must protect that. I am somebody that has deployed all over the world. No other country operates this way. There is not a single country in the world that would allow 20 million people to enter their country illegally, and then when we do something about it, We then cry xenophobia. It would never happen. When I was stationed in Saudi Arabia, you had to have a diplomatic passport just to enter Saudi Arabian airspace. So the idea that we should at least speak to every single person that wants to enter our country is a novel idea because everybody else does it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Crockett.
Thank you so much. It's interesting that
Democrats keep using the phrase constitutional crisis, but the real constitutional crisis is sanctuary city mayors, DAs, and judges who are defying federal law and preventing the president from doing the job that he was elected to do by the American people. It is the job of the federal government to keep Americans safe. When violent gangs are taking over American cities like Chicago, that is an invading army. When you can't live peacefully in an apartment in Colorado, that is also an invading army. No judge, DA, or liberal mayor should be able to usurp the power of our commander-in-chief, who was elected by 77 million Americans, and now the Supreme Court agrees. Since the Democrats do not like the result of the election, you would think that they will be focusing on the midterms coming up, but instead they are engaging in a judicial coup d'etat. The reason they are not focused on the midterms is because they are not confident that they can take back control of the House of Representatives in 2 years because they have no leader and they have no valid message. The Democrat Party has a 21% approval rating with voters in this country. And why? Because their only message is Trump is bad. They've gone so far as to attack people for driving electric vehicles. They openly admit that they are DEI hires, and they claim that the reason they're not popular with voters right now is because they are not opposing Trump enough. That's the reaction to their failure. Their solution is to become more extreme and more unpopular with their policies. This question must be asked: does the Democrat Party hate President Trump more than they love our country and more than they love the safety of my fellow Americans? This might explain why they are willing to overtly defend members of Trinidad MS-13 rather than stand up and clap for a child with a terminal brain cancer illness, or for a young man admitted to West Point, my alma mater, or for a family of the gentleman who was murdered in Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump derangement syndrome is real. It's a real thing. And sanctuary policies are harming my fellow Americans, as my witnesses have testified here today. This U.S. congressman is tired of seeing mothers, daughters, and wives of Americans raped, maimed, and murdered by Trinidad and MS-13 and other violent criminals that have snuck across the border to destroy this great nation. All of us should support ICE raids, the hard work of Tom Homan, Customs and Border Protection, and the policies of our duly elected Commander-in-Chief. Ms. Carter-Walters, thank you for being here, ma'am. I really appreciate your testimony earlier. In your experience, specifically in Chicago, are communities of color disproportionately impacted by illegal migrants getting special privileges? And if so, how?
Yes, so they are placed in our communities. They are not placed anywhere else but in our communities. And they are taking over our schools. So whereas you already had overcrowded schooling, so you might have 20 to 1 class. Now you have 40 to 1 class, and then they don't speak English. So now that's taken away from the child already who is already in an overcrowded classroom. And then you have where now we can't even, they took over our parks. So where you'll have grandmoms and things, kids, to keep the kids off the street, they house illegals into the field houses. So they took over our field houses. And then now apartments, whereas because our mayor is paying so much money for illegals to house them, now we have tenants that can't even, the landlords that won't even rent to American citizens because they're renting to illegals because they get paid more for illegals.
Now, let me ask you the next question, ma'am. You've been black for a pretty long time, right?
Yes.
So me too. I mean, I've been black for my entire life, so just want to acknowledge that. So by basically what you're saying, do you view yourself as a different American, or do you just care about the safety of our community? Are you a racist for feeling this way?
No.
Thank you very much. And Sheriff Wagner, thank you so much for your service. I really appreciate all you've done for this great country. You've been a hostage negotiator, detective, a patrol sergeant, and sheriff. Your accolades are unbelievable. My question for you is this: what are the Democrats in your state doing to prevent you from doing your job? And do you expect more of this, or are you not allowed to enforce the law?
It's come down to I'm not allowed to or else. And that's really what we're faced with. We have an attorney general that is going by his marching orders, whatever you want to call it, and coming after our little agency to serve as a message to the rest of the state of Washington. And if you look behind me, that's why these sheriffs are here today. They all feel the heat. They feel the situation is bearing down on us. We're only 39 sheriffs in our state, and our state needs sheriffs, believe it or not. But they keep trying the attack constantly.
Thank you. And along with, as somebody that has worn the uniform, I understand the importance of leadership, and it starts at the top. Thank you so much for what you've done for our great nation.
Has expired.
I have a unanimous consent request.
I yield back the remainder of my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There was no time remaining. I have a unanimous consent request.
From Texas, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Democrats love to talk about democracy. They claim Donald Trump is a threat to it. They say actions taken by his administration undermine it. But let's be clear. Democrats have twisted and weaponized the word democracy into nothing more than a partisan talking point. So let me tell you what democracy is not. Democracy is not the tyranny of the majority. When 77 million Americans cast their vote for a president, and when every major swing state breaks in his favor, and when the Electoral College delivers a clear mandate, it is not democracy when a district court judge overturns the will of the American people and usurps the constitutional authority of the commander-in-chief, full stop. President Trump, along with Tom Homan, CBP, and ICE, are doing an outstanding job securing our homeland. And in just a few months, we have seen historic progress on border enforcement, gotaways are down, arrests are up, and deportations are finally happening. But now we are beginning to see that progress stall. And why? Because of the tyranny of the minority and activist judges targeting immigration executive orders. It is not the role, nor is it the authority of a single judge to undermine the commander-in-chief's constitutional responsibility to repeal an invasion. And make no mistake about it, this is an invasion. 20 million people entering our country illegally for the past 4 years is in fact the quintessential definition of an invasion. It's not just a border crisis. We are fighting cartels like Tren de Aragua and MS-13. You see, groups like these, in coordination with the Chinese Communist Party, are flooding our country with fentanyl. It is not just a crisis here on drugs. It is chemical warfare. And fentanyl is not a simple drug. It's also poison. In my conversations with Texas sheriffs in the front lines, there's absolutely no confusion about what's happening. The mission of these cartels backed by the CCP is simple. And they told me this, and I quote, "Kill the gringo." And that's the reality. And President Trump is using his power and his constitutional power given to him by the American public to stop this from happening. Ms. Romero, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate your testimony earlier. You went as far as saying publicly that in Kamala Harris's America, every state is a border state and every community is under threat. You also said that after Tren de Aragua invaded your apartment complex, you reached out to local media and several NGOs in your community begging for help, and you were turned away because there were no government programs that grant citizens protected status. I have a question for you, ma'am. Do you feel more or less safe now that President Trump is back in the White House?
More.
And why do you say that?
Because he's getting rid of the criminals that were harassing all of us.
Do you think that President Trump is putting the priorities of America and the average American citizen above the priorities of the cartels and those people that want to destroy this nation?
Yes, because these people were causing immediate harm to citizens, not some imaginary harm that could happen one day.
Man, if you had a message for the American people today, what would it be?
This is a real threat to our communities, not just mine, not an isolated incident, not just regulated to one building. These are all over the United States. Apparently, people have forgotten 9/11. There are dangerous criminals in our country, and if we don't start getting them out now, Then when? After they victimize someone just like me?
I fought for this country. There are many people in this room that fought for this country. I flew 55 combat air missions in Baghdad in an Apache helicopter because I do not want to see animals in our country terrorize my fellow Americans. That's what we took an oath to do. As sitting here in the halls of Congress, it is also our responsibility to protect the American citizen first. For the record, as somebody has deployed all over this world, no other country operates like this. None. You cannot tell me a country that would allow 20 million people to enter their country illegally and their country do absolutely nothing about it. And for the record, this is the greatest country in the world. That's why there's 20 million people trying to enter it illegally. So therefore, we bear an even greater responsibility to keep these animals from entering our country to protect you, the American public. That's our job. President Trump won, and he was given a mandate for that very reason. He promised to protect us and put our priorities first. It is just that simple. I understand my colleagues on the left may disagree with this to a certain extent, but quite frankly, the mandate was already given to us, and ma'am, you're sitting here right now because you are terrorized by the very animals that had no business being in our country in the first place. I'll let you answer this last question, ma'am. As we move forward, what would you like us to do to protect you?
Briefly, please.
Stop wasting tax dollars trying to interrupt him and stop him from what he's doing. Do something to protect the people who elected you and put you in your spots, to look down and decide what happens to the rest of us.
Thank you, ma'am. I get back to the remainder of my time.
Gentlelady from...
What we're talking about here, and I really appreciate your input, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I'll recognize the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman. The past few years, the left has used every weapon, including weaponizing the Department of Justice against President Trump. But of course, they didn't stop at the DOJ. The left used state and local prosecutors to do their biddings as well. Do you remember the so-called hush money case in New York? This is the case that was led by Matthew Colangelo, the former number 3 at the DOJ. That's right. A high-ranking DOJ official left his job to work for a local DA's office. That's pretty ridiculous and does not pass a smell test to anybody that's competent. And of course, there's the so-called RICO case in Georgia, as if this guy was Al Capone. Thanks, Fannie. And then there's Tish James. She ran solely on prosecuting Donald Trump. Now, it isn't her main job to protect New Yorkers. She was clearly distracted. And you cannot tell me that these cases were not politically motivated. And if President Trump were not running for president again, none of this would have happened, period. None of this would have happened. What people have got to understand is that this is really, really good for fundraising for Democrats. But I'm going to say the quiet part out loud here. They want the veneer of legitimacy. You may have forgotten this, but again, they threw everything at President Trump. They impeached him twice. They tried to remove his name from the state presidential ballots. They laser-focused Lady Justice to eliminate the competition. And how do you survive this? Because he is clearly not like the average person. He is a political force of nature. What happened over the course of the past 4 years to President Trump should shock everyone in this country. Because one thing he would always say on the campaign trail was this: if he could do it to me, they could do it to you. I'm just standing in their way. This is repulsive behavior that we saw from the left to prevent a man from becoming the president of the free world. And guess what happened? We, the people, saw right through the crap, and we still made him our 47th president. Thank God for the resolve of the American people. Mr. Epstein, I have a question for you, sir. Thank you for your work to expose weaponization against President Trump. You referenced that the Alvin Bragg case was coordinated with Biden. And for those of us at home, can you walk us through this process and kind of how it happened? And can you explain how Biden and his fingerprints were all over this operation?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. So I wish we could tell you what the documents would reveal. That's still up in litigation. But what we did America First Legals, we obviously used a FOIA request to Main Justice to look for communications with the New York District Attorney's Office. And the response, consistent with what Attorney General Garland said to this committee, was that there were no responsive records. And so what we did is what any good investigative lawyer does, is you send a similar request to the district attorney's office in New York, the Manhattan DA, and you say, give us all communications with the Department of Justice. And while they didn't disclose those records, they said there's 36 responsive records, which suggests that, in fact, there were communications. And it's important for the public to know what was said in those communications.
Thank you very much for answering the question. And I also want the American public to understand something. The reason why the left is still railing on President Trump, even though he won the presidency, we won the Senate, and we were able to keep the majority in the House, is because, quite frankly, they have nowhere else to go because this lawfare fell flat on its face. We cannot allow this to happen again in the future of this country. That's why we've got to understand our history and how this works. We have to understand that we are a constitutional republic, and we must protect the average citizen in this country, ranging from President Trump to the average person that works every day here in America that makes a decent wage to just take care of their family. Everybody must be treated fairly under the law, regardless of what they do or regardless of what they aspire to be. And with that, I yield back the remainder of my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank my friend from Texas. Now recognize the gentlelady from Vermont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Fully aware of what allegiance is, and I would also note that one of the very few responsibilities our federal government has is actually making those determinations as to who should be citizens and who should be in our country.
Correct.
I would now recognize the gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand more than anyone that we are a nation of immigrants, but there's a difference, stark difference, between giving citizenship to the children of slaves, the children of those subject to the Middle Passage, the children of sharecroppers, and the children of those who were once considered property, and giving citizenship to the children of people who cross the border illegally, stay in taxpayer-funded luxury hotels, who receive free Xboxes, free cell phones, free flights around the country, and 3 square meals a day. There's a big difference. My great-great-grandfather was born on a plantation, Rosedown Plantation in Louisiana. He had to join the Union Color Guard to gain his freedom. By morphing the citizenship clause into something that it wasn't meant to be, it's demeaning to descendants of slaves like me. And not just me who served this country, but my father is a retired colonel. My sister went to West Point as a retired colonel. My brother went to West Point. We are talking about a direct descendant of a slave that earned the right to be in this country and passed that ilk down to his ancestry. People bled for it. People died for it. And it means something. The purpose of the 14th Amendment that President Trump's Birthright Citizenship Executive Order is that the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment was never meant to apply to children of illegal or legal aliens. Allowing birthright citizenship to stay in place dilutes the citizenship of not just Black Americans like me, but every single American citizen that had to earn it the right way. Let's say this in black and white. Either you're a U.S. citizen or you are not. Now, the left has spent decades cheapening what it means to be an American citizen. They've quite literally been chipping away at the basic value of American citizenship. They pretend to be altruistic, but we know the truth. Ozzy Osbourne's daughter said on The View that we have to let illegal immigrants in this country because who else will clean our toilets? We hear it all the time. Who will pick our crops? And even though that we know that American citizens are the majority of those people picking our crops, we know what you're insinuating. And all this must end now. Mr. O'Brien, earlier you brought up birth tourism and how it's an issue of national security. Could you kind of expound on that and talk about why that's an issue? As somebody that served this country, this is near and dear to my heart.
Sure. If we give U.S. citizenship to absolutely anyone who is born on our soil, that takes the United States out of control of who becomes a U.S. citizen. And since, as everyone here knows, the people are the government of the United States, that puts us in a position where we could be allowing people who are citizens of adversary nations to be coming here, having children who gain U.S. citizenship, and then are trained to be adversaries of the United States. It puts them in a position where they can get jobs with security clearances, they can join the military, they can work in the defense industry, which they would not otherwise be able to do.
So over the course of the last 4 years, have there been people that have entered our country that are our adversaries, that have come to this country that we know of and had children?
Yeah, there have been a massive number of people who have come here, and not just over the last 4 years. It was happening before. I worked in the national security apparatus of the Department of Homeland Security, and I worked on many cases where that had happened.
Is there any other country in the world that you know operates like this? I'm saying this from the standpoint of somebody that's deployed to Saudi Arabia and other countries around the world. This would never happen anywhere else, by the way. Can you name a country in modern or recent history that has behaved like this, and what has been the outcome of this type of behavior? Meaning that is this even a sustainable model given the number of people that have entered this country over the course, especially the last 4 years?
No, it's not a sustainable model. The only other place where it existed was in a number of the Latin American countries, and most of them did away with it after they were attempting to attract migrants in order to build their industries and build the number of people living in those countries. So this is something that's nearly non-existent.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The left throws love thy neighbor in our face, and they say that we have to have open borders in order to be nice to people. Well, I ask them to tell the left, we have a bunch of neighbors right here in our country that are Americans. You see, your neighbors are the homeless veterans that you drive by to work. Our neighbors are the wayward teens running away from a bad home environment. Your neighbors are the families who just got evicted from their apartment. What do all those neighbors have in common? They're all Americans. And let's use our American taxpaying dollars to put Americans first. Newsflash. This is why President Trump is our president, because it's past due that we put the American citizen first. And once we solve our issues here, I'm a Christian. By God, let's help everybody else. But at this point, we have enough problems to fix in our own country, and this must stop. Thank you for your time.
Thank the gentleman from Texas. I will now recognize the gentlelady from Vermont.
I now recognize myself and yield to Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We tried to solve this problem when we had a Democrat in office, and people say that we're not bipartisan. We can be when we want to be. Last Congress, I was a proud original co-sponsor, my colleague Darrell Iss's bill, the Judges Act. The Judges Act passed the Senate unanimously and passed the House in a bipartisan manner. However, despite the overwhelming support for the bill, President Biden voted against the Judges Act after President Trump got elected. President Biden also bragged about ignoring the Supreme Court's ruling that he didn't agree with. But now we're hearing that if President Trump ignores judges, we're in a constitutional crisis. So if everyone is following along, it means that a constitutional crisis only occurs when Republicans ignore federal judges. And the left is using activist judges to not only legislate from the bench, but also to encroach on the executive branch. The left will call it simple checks and balances, but everyone in this room who went to law school or can even read a civic book knows this playbook. The Democrats lost an election in overwhelming fashion, and now they are resorting to lawfare to prevent the will of the people from having their day. Is it justice delayed, or is it democracy delayed? The same party that raided the home of President Trump and weaponized the DOJ against President Trump is now using the limited power they have to delay reality. What the left is experiencing isn't new. They are simply experiencing the 5 stages of grief. And unfortunately for them, they are stuck on stage 1, denial. The American people really need to get them to stage 5 as fast as possible, which is acceptance, because that's exactly what the American people voted for, and that's exactly where the American people are. This is the year 2025, and I want to help Democrats get to reality. This is the reality. The duly elected president of the United States is Donald Trump. President Trump is the leader of the executive branch. More than 77 million Americans voted for this result. Delaying the process of this administration is democracy delayed. This is called acceptance. You can't deny it any longer. Let's not play politics with the judiciary system. Let's pass the Judges Act and create more judgeships for our already overwhelmed federal judiciary. Everyone complains about the case backlogs, but we can fix it right here, right now. The American people deserve it. Do you know how we know that? Because the American people voted for it. And with that, I yield back the remainder of my time to the
Would the
chairman.
gentleman yield for a question?
I yield my time back to the chairman.
Thank the gentleman. I'd yield to the ranking member for his question.
Thank you kindly. Just in the discussion about denial, it occurred to me.
Yes. The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. In 2020, what you were viewing on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter wasn't an organic news feed. It was a state-approved news feed curated by the Biden-Harris administration. This might sound familiar. This news feed is brought to you by Pfizer. This news feed is brought to you by the Biden-Harris administration. This news feed is brought to you by the big Russia lie. And we know it's true because 51 intelligence officers said it was, right? Wrong. Republicans, conservatives, and America First patriots endured years of gaslighting, censoring, demonetization, suspension, debanking, collusion to deplatform, and every restriction of free speech imaginable, all under the Biden-Harris administration. In the past 7 years, we have witnessed the greatest assault on the First Amendment in American history. But remember, the Democrats are the party of preserving democracy, right? We expected this type of censorship from the Biden-Harris administration, but what we didn't know was how coordinated their efforts were with big tech companies like Meta, Amazon, and Twitter. What I want to talk about today are the groups responsible for this censorship. Now, Twitter has been saved thanks to Elon Musk, but Meta remains in the hands of the very people who worked with the Biden administration to silence our voices. I know that Meta recently changed their policies concerning censorship and free speech, but who's to say that those changes will be permanent? Let's talk about Meta's political content figure, which magically disappeared upon the new Trump administration. Will this political content filter magically reappear if the Democrats take back the White House at some point in the very distant future? Will voices like mine and many of my colleagues in this room be suppressed ahead of the midterms? These are all questions that inquiring minds really want to know. Now, you might have noticed that recently Mark Zuckerberg has been on the press tour to repair his pro-censorship image. But those of us who have been subject to censorship, especially this U.S. congressman, I don't forgive and I don't forget quite so easily. Let's not forget that Meta banned the sitting president of these United States of America from Instagram and Facebook. And interestingly enough, Meta banned President Trump before Biden even took office. So you can't defecate on the president's First Amendment rights and call it chocolate pudding at this point. And just because you give him $1 million ex post facto does not change the fact that you did this and this actually happened. I've seen Democrats on TV for the past week scream, Elon Musk, Musk. It's been quite invigorating, actually. I'm really enjoyed it. And what's funny about it to me is that you're mad at the guy that found the fraud, but not mad at the people that wasted your money. Here in Congress, we clearly can't cut a budget, so I really thank Elon for doing our job for us. Mr. Schellenberger, thank you for being here, sir. As a leading expert in the suppression of freedom of speech, what is the most egregious example of censorship from Meta that has occurred during the Biden administration, in your humble opinion?
I mean, probably the censorship of what Facebook itself called true stories of vaccine side effects. These are ordinary moms and dads who are describing the impact of vaccine on their kids, and they were censored without their knowledge and against the opinion of Facebook's own executives who said, if you want to increase vaccine hesitancy, there's no better way to do it than to censor people that are trying to share those stories. I mean, that's the most fundamental kind of conversation that we should be allowed to have between ordinary folks, and Facebook secretly censored it at the behest of the Biden administration.
Do you see a return to some of the policies that I was referring to with Meta in terms of the upcoming election, the upcoming midterms, the future? I understand right now it's really cool because President Trump won, so now you want to be in the cool guy club. But what measures do you think need to be done, or do you see a potential return to that if we don't get this right, in the next, 18 months?
I mean, I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think Zuckerberg, his statements were amazing recently, but of course, he had made similar statements, including defending Holocaust denial on Facebook in 2019. He went back on that, as you mentioned, he deplatformed the president. So not super reliable, so I do worry about that. I think the most important thing for Congress to do is to find every penny that's going to censorship activities in the federal government, phase them out, and then some investigation to hold the right people accountable. Because I'm with you, I was censored on Facebook for sharing true information as well, and I won't easily forget it.
Thank you very much. See you back to the remainder of my time. Thank you, sir.
Gentleman yields back. The Mayor of New York, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Biden attempted to reimagine immigration in America. Biden wanted you to think that it was normal to live in an America with open borders, to live in an America with sanctuary cities, to fly 30,000 people per month from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela into America on commercial flights, to turn temporary protected status into permanent protected status. That is not normal. It is not constitutional. And now, thank God, it's over. Do you want to know what is normal? President Trump's policies are normal, and he's back, and he is here to help. Within hours of Trump's taking office, President Trump deleted the CBP One app, reformed the parole program, and placed a real border czar, Tom Homan, in charge. And he is a serious man. Trump also signed a flurry of executive orders restoring normal border security and immigration standards to this great nation. Again, thank God he's back. When Trump got elected, we knew that the liberal media we knew exactly what they would do because they do the same thing during the previous Trump administration. We knew that they would attempt to pull our heartstrings to shame us into changing our standard immigration laws. In fact, on the day that President Trump got inaugurated, the liberal media posted a story of a woman crying when her CBP One app appointment was canceled. That tactic is not going to work this time because we have seen firsthand for the last 4 years the devastating effects that Biden's border policies have had on all Americans. And while I empathize with everyone who wants to come to America, because again, we know this is the greatest place in the world, this compassion is misplaced, as it usually is with the left. The woman's tears that I care the most about are the mothers of Lincoln Riley, Jocelyn Nungary, and Rachel Morin. Lincoln Riley was killed by an illegal alien while out on a jog. It should be known that her killer committed a crime in another American city, but he was released because that city, you guessed it, was a sanctuary city. Jocelyn, while on her way to a convenience store, was killed by 2 illegal aliens who entered through the southern border just a few months earlier. At the time, these illegal aliens were still wearing their US-issued ankle tracking monitors when they killed her. Miss Morin, a young mother of 5 children, was hiking on the Maryland Trail when an illegal alien attacked and killed her. And I could sadly name many more circumstances just like this. I don't know about other countries, but in America, our daughters, and I have 2 of them, should be able to go for a jog and a run or to a convenience store without the fear of an illegal alien killing them. That goes for all of our children in this nation. I serve this country to protect my children and our sons and daughters. Mr. Fabricatore, thank you so much for being here. As always, you're one of my favorites. One of the executive orders that President Trump has enacted so far, of them, which one do you think is going to be the most helpful and why?
Well, number one, I think all the executive orders that he's putting through are going to be, they're needed. There's a reason why he did it. But securing our border, number one, making sure that the CBP app is no longer being used so that there's fraud coming into this country. I think overall, everything that President Trump is trying to do for the border is for the right reason. The number one priority should be protecting American citizens. And I think that was the goal of President Trump.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, given these last few executive orders as well, I'd actually like your take on that. And do you think it is going to improve our border and our immigration status, or is it going to hurt our immigration status? Just out of curiosity.
The set of executive orders are definitely going to improve our immigration status, especially the one that rescinded the Biden orders. I especially look forward to the one that is going to increase state and local partnerships with federal authorities to work on this common mission.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll end with this. Do not allow the left to gaslight you. Secure borders are normal. I have someone that has deployed all over the world. Every other country would never behave and allow 20 million people to enter their country illegally. That's not normal. So thank God we're going to get back to normalcy, and thank you all for leading our charge. I yield back the remainder of my time.
Thank you. Mr. Knott. Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Biden attempted to reimagine immigration in America. Biden wanted you to think that it was normal to live in an America with open borders, to live in an America with sanctuary cities, to fly 30,000 people per month from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela into America on commercial flights, to turn temporary protected status into permanent protected status. That is not normal. It is not constitutional. And now, thank God, it's over. Do you want to know what is normal? President Trump's policies are normal, and he's back, and he is here to help. Within hours of Trump's taking office, President Trump deleted the CBP One app, reformed the parole program, and placed a real border czar, Tom Homan, in charge. And he is a serious man. Trump also signed a flurry of executive orders restoring normal border security and immigration standards to this great nation. Again, thank God he's back. When Trump got elected, we knew that the liberal media we knew exactly what they would do because they do the same thing during the previous Trump administration. We knew that they would attempt to pull our heartstrings to shame us into changing our standard immigration laws. In fact, on the day that President Trump got inaugurated, the liberal media posted a story of a woman crying when her CBP One app appointment was canceled. That tactic is not going to work this time because we have seen firsthand for the last 4 years the devastating effects that Biden's border policies have had on all Americans. And while I empathize with everyone who wants to come to America, because again, we know this is the greatest place in the world, this compassion is misplaced, as it usually is with the left. The woman's tears that I care the most about are the mothers of Lincoln Riley, Jocelyn Nungary, and Rachel Morin. Lincoln Riley was killed by an illegal alien while out on a jog. It should be known that her killer committed a crime in another American city, but he was released because that city, you guessed it, was a sanctuary city. Jocelyn, while on her way to a convenience store, was killed by 2 illegal aliens who entered through the southern border just a few months earlier. At the time, these illegal aliens were still wearing their U.S.-issued ankle tracking monitors when they killed her. Miss Morin, a young mother of 5 children, was hiking on the Maryland Trail when an illegal alien attacked and killed her. And I could sadly name many more circumstances just like this. I don't know about other countries, but in America, our daughters, and I have 2 of them, should be able to go for a jog and a run or to a convenience store without the fear of an illegal alien killing them. That goes for all of our children in this nation. I serve this country to protect my children and our sons and daughters. Mr. Fabricatore, thank you so much for being here. As always, you're one of my favorites. One of the executive orders that President Trump has enacted so far, of them, which one do you think is going to be the most helpful and why?
Well, number one, I think all the executive orders that he's putting through are going to be, they're needed. There's a reason why he did it. But securing our border, number one, making sure that the CBP app is no longer being used so that there's fraud coming into this country. I think overall, everything that President Trump is trying to do for the border is for the right reason. The number one priority should be protecting American citizens, and I think that was the goal of President Trump.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, given these last few executive orders as well, I'd actually like your take on that. And do you think it is going to improve our border and our immigration status, or is it going to hurt our immigration status? Just out of curiosity.
The set of executive orders are definitely going to improve our immigration status, especially the one that rescinded the Biden orders. I especially look forward to the one that is going to increase state and local partnerships with federal authorities to work on this common mission.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll end with this. Do not allow the left to gaslight you. Secure borders are normal. I have someone that has deployed all over the world. Every other country would never behave and allow 20 million people to enter their country illegally. That's not normal. So thank God we're going to get back to normalcy, and thank you all for leading our charge. I yield back the remainder of my time.
Thank you. Mr. Knott.